Welcome. This video is about making a large wooden doll with hair and with shoes. Here's the list of supplies you'll need. I want to emphasize that I'm using pine because it's soft. All the tools are pretty easy to come by. If you've seen my video about making a simple wooden doll, the materials are very similar with a few additions. So, in fact, let's compare those two, the simple wooden doll and this doll. This doll has hair, so I'll show you how to install hair. The legs are attached in a different way. I insert them into the wood, and it has shoes. Those are the dowel shoes. You can make this doll really any size you want. In this case, I'm just making it from the doll I've already made, which is quite old. You can see it's been around for a while. It's about 4¼ inches long, but hey, you can make it whatever size you want. If you're doing this with a child, or if you're a kid doing this yourself and you're watching this video, hey, you know, the world's your oyster. Make it whatever size you want. I make a line to show where I'm going to do the neck. That's going to be really helpful to me to orient when I start that part of the process. So I've got neck, and I've got the length of the doll. And now we're ready to go ahead and make that neck. Now I'm going to put this onto a bench so I can do the neck with the file. Make sure the neck is nicely off the end of the bench or the chair or the table or whatever solid surface you're working from. And then I'm holding it in place with a C-clamp. That's my preferred method. It holds it really securely. You don't want this moving around, otherwise it makes the work really hard. Then I can get above the work and really push on it with that 1/4-inch rat tail file to make the neck. And it's just a lot of work. I'm not going to show you all of it right here. You get pretty bored. Just bear in mind that it's just pushing and pushing and rubbing and rubbing. If you're doing it with a child, hold a tool with them to help them, or take turns with them. Have them do as much as they can. And if you're a kid doing it, just be patient. It takes time. You see, I turned it over to do the other side. That's important. Now I'm going to cut it, and I'm using the miter box to cut this doll. Miter box is the best choice for cutting pieces of wood this small. I line up the line with the slot. Now I'm going to test it out with the saw, carefully putting it in. Notice how I hold the saw from the back side up, but it moves around. If you've got strong hands, you can hold it with your hand. But when I'm working with kids, I clamp it up for them, and then they can do it all on their own. Or I hold it with them, and then they do all the sawing. And if you're a kid doing it on your own, find a way to securely attach that wood so it doesn't move around. You're going to have a very frustrating experience. Now I've cut it off. I'm ready to sand this. And I could just hold it in my hand to sand it, but I'm going to clamp it. And that gets me above the wood so I can push really hard on it and make the work go quicker. I want to make that head nice and round. I want to get inside the neck. I want to sand this doll so it is beautiful and smooth and round everywhere. And I'm going to skip ahead again. You don't need to watch me sand the whole thing. There I am finishing it up. I'm getting in that neck with the corner of the sanding block. Next, it's time to mark where I'm going to drill the hole for the arms, the 2 holes for the legs, and a whole bunch of holes for the hair. I use a 1/4-inch drill for the arms, and I put those arms right under the neck. I'm looking for that soft wood between the darker lines of grain. I'm not going to try and drill where it's really hard. So you can see me making those dots where the wood is blonde, not where it's dark brown. Again, I do the same thing up here on the head for the hair. I'm going to drill 10 holes, and I'm putting those dots where I know the hole will go in easily. If you try and drill on the harder lines of the grain, the drill will just slip right off and you will not have success. So it's really important to aim for the lighter, softer parts of the wood when you're making dots for drilling holes, especially in the end grain like that. Now it's time to start drilling some holes. If you've got a vise, use it. This is the perfect application for a vise. It enables you to hold the wood solidly in a vertical position. You'll be able to drill these holes easily. If you don't have a vise, but you have a plastic box, like this crate, you can clamp it to the edge of a plastic box or some solid box like this. A wooden box would be great to hold the wood so you can drill vertically. It's really important you not try and do this horizontally. It can be done, but it's difficult. And you want to be able to do that with your drill. Hold it vertically. I made this so I could clamp things vertically on a bench. It requires another C-clamp. I just used 2 pieces of 2x4 and screwed and glued them together. And now I can clamp that onto a surface, like this bench. And then I can clamp my doll in this case, or any project that I want to work on in a position that requires it to be vertical, this way. So I can clamp it right up against that other 2x4. And so you'll see me use this for the rest of this tutorial. It's a really handy tool, pretty simple to make. I just use 2x4. You could use an electric drill for this. I'm going to use a hand drill for this because that's what I use when I'm working with children. This first hole for the arms goes all the way through. You can see me working at it. If you're doing this with a kid, make sure that you help them out if they need it. But if they can do it on their own with a hand drill, great. If you're doing it with an electric drill, look at my tutorial on making a simple wooden doll. There's some guidance. Once I've finished with the arms, I just spin the doll and clamp it up for the legs. I want those pointing straight up. That'll make it much easier to drill the holes. And you can see how those legs insert. I drill the holes about 1 inch deep. And the way I do that is by marking the drill. So you're going to see me mark the drill here. I just use some painter's tape. Any old tape will work. I've used cellophane tape, masking tape, duct tape. So I hold the drill steady. There's my inch. Okay, if you're doing it with a kid, you can have them mark out everything while you hold the drill steady. That's what I usually do. Then they can put the tape on themselves. Just be careful that they don't run their fingers up and down that bit because it can cut. Now I'm ready to drill that hole, and the tape does something really cool. It wipes all the sawdust off. There, I know I'm all in when the sawdust is gone. And I can do the same right over there. There, the sawdust is gone. Now I want to pick out the drill bit I'm going to use for the holes for the hair. If you're using yarn like this, you can use a smaller bit. Or if you're using string like I'm going to be using, I might want a slightly larger bit. Fold the string or the yarn in half and match up the bit to it. You want it to be about that size so you can poke that into the hole easily. There you can see me drilling the holes. I've got a flag on there. It's about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more. The fact that I've got those dots in the soft part makes this really easy. That drill isn't walking around very much at all. And I'm skipping ahead. There I am on the 10th hole. Once you've drilled all these holes, it's very important to make sure there's no dust in them. So take it out, tap it nice and firmly on a surface that it won't dent, but get all that dust out of the holes. You want them nice and clean and empty. Now that I've got the doll's body done, I'm going to set it aside. It's time to make the shoes. And I will show you how to make shoes like this doll has, these dowel shoes. They're a lot harder to make unless you have a vise. If you've got a vise, they're totally easy. So there's the dowel. That's just a 3/4 inch dowel. And this is 3/4 by 3/4 pine. The pine is going to be way easier to make shoes out of. In this case, I make them about 1 inch long. That's because it's proportionally right. But hey, if you're making a great big doll, everything will be bigger. If you're making a smaller doll, it'll be smaller. And if you're just using found stuff, hey, that could be really fun. I've had people make dolls out of all kinds of materials. I make the dots where I'm going to drill the holes for the legs going into the shoe about 1/3 of the way into the shoe. I'm going to put a flag on this drill bit at about 1/2 inch so I don't go in too far. That's a 1/4 inch drill bit, same as I used for the arms and legs. I clamp up the shoes just like I did the doll, and I drill into the flag. You can see how easy this is when you're using a piece of wood that's square, like this 3/4 inch square. Much more difficult to try and clamp up a dowel in this fashion, which is why, if you're using a dowel, it's much easier to put it into a vise. Here you can see I'm drilling those holes, got them both done. Once you have your holes drilled, use the miter box to cut your pieces of wood. If you don't have a miter box, of course, you'll be using a different saw. I, again, clamp it up, especially with little tiny pieces of wood. Much safer for the hands if you have a spring clamp to hold those in place. Now I'm going to sand this, much as I did the doll, except that this piece of wood is tiny. So I put the sanding block down, rub the wood against it. If you're working with a kid doing this, much easier to do it this way. Much, much easier. Now it's time to put on the arms. I cut off the frayed bit of the rope. I'm putting 1/4 inch Venetian blind cord into a 1/4 inch hole, which is a tight fit. I find I got to really pinch and twist to get it started. If you've seen my video about making a simple wooden doll, this is exactly the same process as I show you there for putting on the arms and the legs. Got to pull that string through. You can see it got stuck a bit. I pull it through. And now I start with a hand. I make that hand at the very end of the rope by tying an overhand knot. Pull it nice and snug. And then, once I've got it snug enough, I'm going to make the shoulder. Same process. I tie an overhand knot. I try and proportion it while the knot is still loose. Then pull it tight. For the other side, and this is the tricky part, I'm going to make a great big loop and put the doll through it. So don't cut any rope. First I make a loop, put the doll through it. I'm going to make both hands, both shoulders, and then I cut the rope at the very end. So again, I make a great big loop. I put the doll through it. Kind of a struggle for that doll. And then I pull that. And I want to make sure that I leave that knot nice and loose until I've got it about the right length. It's very hard to move a knot once it's tight. There I go. I'm going to pull it. I can wiggle it a bit by pulling it one direction or another as I tighten it up. Those arms look close enough. So now I'm going to cut it with the scissors and trim off that other hand where it's frayed a bit. Okay, arms are done. Now I'm going to make the legs. I make the legs about the same length as the body. In this case, I'm making them a little bit shorter. And just cut 2 pieces of string the same length. And then I clean out the holes on the feet. I use a little nail there to get any little chips out of the way. I want that rope to go into the hole nice and easily. Then I'm putting in some glue. You could use Elmer's white glue. In this case, it's a little bit of Carpenter's glue. Doesn't really matter. White glue is totally adequate to this job. I pinch it and I twist it into the hole. So I want you to see how beautiful that leg is. Again, I twist the other one into the hole. Now it's time to put those legs into the body. Again, I put some of that glue in the hole. Sorry about the angle on that one. Sometimes it's hard to tell where the camera's pointing. Then I twist it in, same way I twisted the leg into the shoe. One of the tricks is I want to make sure that shoe is facing forward. And this is the time to do it, because once that glue dries, that leg is pointing whatever way it is. So consider yourself a little bit like an orthopedic surgeon, and you want to make sure those knees and hips line up right. Get that shoe so it's facing forward. Okay, you can see me twisting it a bit more. Almost there. Oh, that's a bit too far. I'm going to twist it back a little bit. That shoe's ready. That shoe's ready. Now my shoes are facing the right direction. We are ready for the final step, which is to put in the hair. The first step is to cut the string to the right length. Make it twice as long as you want the hair to be. I prefer to make the hair longer than I think because it's always possible to make it shorter. Now you're ready for the last part. Lay out your string, clamp up your doll like it was for drilling the holes, and put glue into the holes all at the same time. It's easier to do it this way, where you can smear the glue into the holes freely. I use my finger, wipe it in, push it into those holes, and then I can clean up my gluey finger, in this case, very conveniently on the bottom of my workbench. Now, to put the hair in, fold it in half, put the fold over the hole, and push that string into the hole using a toothpick or a nail. And I really wiggle it in there, make sure it goes in all the way. You want that string to be in all the way, or it comes out too easily. I'll do it a couple more times so you can see the technique. There's the fold. I'm pushing with a toothpick. I'll do it one more time for you so you get an idea of how it's done. I fold it equally in half, the fold over the hole, push it in with a toothpick. Give that glue about a half an hour to dry at least, and then unwind the string or yarn. I untwist it, and then I can separate the strands quite easily. If you do this with yarn, you'll get really fine threads. It'll look a lot like hair. In this case, the string is well, still string. I can even unwind those little strings and get it even finer. The technique I prefer to use is what you're seeing here, where I untwist it and then separate it. And here we are at the end. I got to give this person some eyes and a nose and a mouth. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave me comments in the comment section so that I can improve my videos. Hope you really enjoy it. And again, here's the tool list. Have fun making stuff. Send me your questions as well in the comment section. I will do my best to answer them. Thanks, and see you again.